All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Of Like Minds video podcast, episode 14. I have a very special guest today, a good friend of mine, Mr. Charlie. Hello, Charlie, for coming on.
Hey.
So, Charlie, I just kind of want to start. What was your upbringing like and growing up, and just growing up? What was childhood like for you?
It was pretty chill. It was like a lot of moving around for sure, because my dad, he used to like to travel a lot, so we would go like places to places. Like I was born in New York, but like my dad, like he just moved so much. We ended up like in Germany, and then after that in Mexico and all that. Now here in the States, so it was like a lot of moving around. But it was like a very like happy upbringing overall. Like it was always pretty chill. Never really had any issues with anything. But yeah, just like the moving around was kind of hard, like in that sense with making connections with people. But
Mm,
you get used to it after a while. And now I really like moving, so
yeah, yeah. Well, how often did you all move? Like, how often was that?
when we were little, I can't even remember that when we were young, because it was like we were in New York, then it was in Mexico for a bit, then it was Germany. Then, well, my dad passed when I was 7. So after that, we moved to Mexico. Stayed there for a while, like 8 years. So then it
Mm,
was like moving between different states when we came to the US. So it
yeah,
was interesting. Yeah.
no, for sure. And I mean, it's that sounds like a lot of, inconsistency in terms of moving around, like you said, and, losing your father, especially being so young. So I guess
Mhm.
if you can just talk about like what do you remember or recall? Like, how did that have an effect on you growing up?
Well, here's the thing, because I was 7 or 8 when he passed. So like a lot of it's like weird because like you don't even like process it, like you don't really know what's going on with something like that. So it didn't really hit me until I started to grow older. Like especially for big holidays like Father's Day, for example. That
Mm,
would always be like a thing where it would like hit me. But it's just one of those things that you have to like kind of learn to adapt because there's really nothing you can do like once it happens. But yeah, I was always kind of like I don't want to say a loner kid, but I was more of an introvert, growing up. So I
mm-hmm.
always kind of like having my own like space, uh, just have to like room to like my own thoughts and all that stuff. So processing like the moving around and then my dad passing and everything. Like I had a lot of time to like process that on my own, which I feel like really helped. Like there was never really anybody who had to be there like explain things to me because I knew what was going on. So I had like the capacity to process it on my own. So that was interesting.
Wow.
But yeah,
I'm, I mean, if you said you were about 7, so you were extremely young, but those are
yeah.
some of our fondest memories being kids.
Mhm.
Maybe a couple things that stand out most about your father's characteristics that still resonate with you today?
Um, Sorry, my eyes get watery. I'm, I'm like it's just my eyes get watery.
No worries, no worries.
Uh, like one of the things. Well, I was very close to my dad. I'll say that. Like my sister was always closer to my mom,
Mm,
and I was always closer to my dad. So in that sense, it really hit me because it would allow me to pretty much be me. So growing up, I was
mm,
more like on the tomboy side, if you will. Like I guess this
mm.
will spoil things,
Yeah,
but I was more on the tomboy side. So he will always allow me to just be me. So that was really nice. And I feel like once he did pass, like sure, a bit of that freedom went away just because my mom had different views of doing things. And then because I guess she thought I would like she wanted me to feel that loss less, she started to get closer to me as well.
mm,
So it was just a little strange just because she was so close to my sister. And then after that she became close to me. So that's one of the things that like definitely affected like her relationship with my sister in that sense as well. Just her trying to like make sure I was okay processing everything just because of how close I was. Because I do remember like it's sad, but a lot of most of my memories of my dad are actually of him being sick. Like I don't
mm,
remember him being well because cancer. It's such a big. He had cancer, And
Mm,
cancer is such like a big disease. Like it doesn't just affect a person; it affects really the entire family.
mm,
So most of my memories of him are like me kind of just being with him during his, because he would just pretty much be in bed all day because he couldn't like get up, he couldn't go anywhere. So most of my memories with my dad are with me like in his room, just kind of keeping him company. So yeah.
wow.
Hmm.
Um, you talking about your mom, that, you know, that tragedy happening and that causing your mom to get closer to you. What was that like? And, maybe how did she do that? How did she create that relationship for you guys to get closer?
I don't remember like the entire like because a lot of that stuff like I like uh tuned it out of my mind, to
Mm,
be honest. But like yeah, just like because like I said like before, like I wasn't really like I was close to my mom. Of course, she's my mother and stuff. But like I wouldn't like spend a lot of time with her as with my spend a lot of time with my dad and not as much time with my mom. Just because we were like going for this to the stores, for example. I would always go with my dad to like stores and all that. My sister would stick with my mom. So things like that. So once my dad passed, I guess there was this like void now. So I feel like she felt the need to like have to fill that. My only like regret in that is that I do feel like her relationship with my sister got a little uh, bad there, just because I feel like I was getting all the attention and she wasn't getting as much attention anymore. Yeah, and I
yeah.
feel like in a way too, like it kind of affected my sister more than me.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
yeah. Well,
Mm.
how exactly would you say? First of all, is your sister younger or older than you?
She's a year older.
So she's a year older. So
Mm.
your older sister, this kind of happening in your family and it hitting everyone hard in a different way.
Mm.
Um, you talked about, your mother getting closer to you, inevitably
Mm.
getting her a little bit more distant with your sister. So how did that kind of change the relationship with you and your sister? And what was even like prior to all these changes?
Well, we always had a good relationship, and like we still do, to be honest. Like we would always like play together. Sometimes she would want to play with me, but me being the loner that I was, and I still am kind of in a lot of ways, I'll be like back off. But yeah, I mean, it didn't really have any negative impact within our relationship because I think my sister, she's always been like very intelligent, and she still is, of
Mm,
course. So and she's always been more mature than people age. So I think she understood what my mom was doing, and she knew
mm,
why I was getting the attention and why she was suddenly getting less attention. Because to me, just the fact that she was like she felt the loss of my dad more than I did when I was young. To me, that's probably because she really understood what was going on, while me, I didn't really know what was happening at the time.
yeah,
So yeah, like we never really like there's no bad blood or anything like that between me and my sister. We get along like really well and everything. But it's more like she and my mom, I think it's a little more complicated there, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's, it's incredible to hear
Mhm.
you sharing your relationship with your sister and how intelligent she is. I actually just met my sister like 6 months ago, and
Oh, nice.
yeah, and she's older too. She's about a few years older, and I actually met her
Mhm.
on her wedding day. So
Oh,
it was a very big jump. So I can definitely empathize with you, and I think even though your sister's been present in your life, and
mhm.
my situation is different, but there's nothing
Yeah.
like having that sibling and someone
Mhm.
who is also extremely smart, but
Yeah, that
is
support system.
absolutely, absolutely. And so um you're doing all this moving around with
Mhm.
your mother and your sister, and so I guess that dynamic growing up and having that constant moving and
Mhm.
dealing with that tragedy, just I guess what else was that like, positively, negatively?
I think how do I say this? like yes, like obviously losing my dad was like, a huge, like very negative thing, very sad thing. But I think in the end, like things have worked out. Like yeah, even like the moving around. Uh, like now I've come to enjoy it, and like my sister loves to travel just because we love going like from place to place.
Yeah.
Like even like just moving around in houses. Like we love going to furniture stores and just looking at the furniture. So it hasn't really had anything like a negative impact. I guess that's just one of those things that you really have to like make the best out of bad situations, and I think
Mm,
we really have.
no,
Yeah.
that's no, that's. I mean, like I said, there's something to be said about, especially having to deal with that at that young of an age, and to
Hmm.
already have that kind of mentality, to just persevere through that. And so, kind of transitioning into, again, based around the moving thing, but what was that like creating friendships and being in school? Because I have to imagine, especially at that age,
Yeah.
it's so crucial that we have that social interaction and we have some
Mhm.
sort of consistency.
Yeah.
So, was there any sort of consistency with schooling or certain friends, or what was that like?
Well, on that front, like it is a little more like interesting. I mean, because I think I'm personally very like I'm a very kind of like shy. I can be like kind of closed person,
Mm,
and it might have to do. I don't know if it had to do with them moving around or me just like enjoying kind of being alone. So sometimes I do. Like moving around from school to school, I did notice like for me personally making friends and all that, it was harder for me, just because I didn't really know per se how to socialize with people. Because I was always more about just being by myself. My sister always had like a easier time, and she still does. But I always had a harder time with that. And like moving from Germany to Mexico, it was interesting because we did like start to get a lot of attention from people, but it was more because they wanted us to speak German. Like it was all about like, oh, like say something in German, say something in German. And so for a while, like everybody like kind of wanted to talk to us, but like it wasn't genuine. After a while,
mm,
one would refuse to like be the spectacle or like just talk in German just because they wanted us to talk in German. Like it did become kind of like people would leave us more. It became like a little harder to make friends for me personally. I mean, I was never bullied or anything like that, thankfully, because I was more like I never messed with anybody, so nobody messed with me in a negative way. Like I'm not like want to go look for trouble.
yeah.
People always respected my space in that sense. But I mean, in the end, I always made friends. But in the beginning, it was always harder, just because I'm the type of person that if you don't talk to me, I don't go talk to you.
So you're probably
Yeah,
going
I'm trying
not to
to change
initiate. Yeah.
now, but yeah.
No, but that's, I mean, that's important to know
Mhm.
and have that awareness. And
Yeah.
I know that you do. And so, no,
Mhm.
that's awesome. And so, talking about navigating through school, and let's kind of move on to a little bit of like going through high school. And adolescent years are very tricky. We are
Yeah.
going through a lot mentally, physically, emotionally, all these things that may have gotten overlooked from previous generations. So, what was that experience like for you in those sectors, in
Mhm.
high school?
Well, high school was interesting just because for most of my like middle school, like elementary school, all that, I was in Mexico. So things and like the LGBT community, for example, in Mexico, it's very, very, very frowned upon. It's very much like being like macho and traditional and all that stuff. So it was interesting to see the change moving to the States, moving to Los Angeles. Uh, it was kind of like a big eye opening because, well, I don't know if you should I go into, um,
Yeah, let's do it.
well, Yeah. So growing up, like, well, I'm trans. So growing up, there was always this thing in the thought of my, like in the back of my head, I always had this thing where I was like, oh, like I wish I was a boy, like I want to be a guy and all that. Like I felt like something was wrong with me, you know.
Mm,
Uh, but nobody ever, like even in Germany, nobody talked about trans people or like in Germany growing up, I never heard about like gay people or like the LGBT community. In Mexico, when you heard about the LGBT community, it was always in a very negative way.
mm,
It was always as an insult. You know, people would throw the F word around like to
mhm,
insult each other. Coming to the States, so I would never even think about like my transness in Mexico. Like it was in the back burner. I didn't even think about it because you know I didn't like in Germany that never came up. Like it was just like a thing. Like you know, I started to grow up and I was like, well, I guess, you know, this is just how life is. I can't do anything about it. In Mexico, all of that was put in the back burner just because, you know, it was always such a negative thing. I never even thought about, you know, being trans or like
yeah.
my identity itself. And then once I came to the States, uh, it was interesting to see. I mean, yes, people still, you know, would speak negatively about LGBTQ people, but there was always a lot of very accepting people, and like there was more of a conversation regarding the LGBTQ plus community, whether it was negative or positive. So then I started to like become more aware of these different spaces, you know, being like
Mm,
gay, being bi, being like all that.
mm,
Well, when I was in Mexico, that was not a thing. Like it was just like, oh, straight, you know, oh,
mhm,
let's not think about those things. That's bad.
yeah.
Coming here, it was like, oh, maybe it's not bad. So, but even then, like in high school, I never really, like sometimes it was, I would think, I never gave being trans much thought. You know, it was
Mm,
something like growing up, I always had this thing. I wish I was a boy. I wish I was a boy. And even through so long of my early years in high school, because you know we were like between Mexico and the States for a while.
yeah.
It was still like sometimes I would have that thing. I was like, oh, I wish I was a guy. Uh, but I never really gave it like deep thought. You know, I always thought like, oh, like, because I knew I liked women. That was something like I knew
Mm,
even from like being very little. I knew I was interested in women.
mm,
So I thought, oh, I'm just gay, I'm a lesbian, whatever. So I thought that was my label for a very, very long time until pretty much until college, really. And it wasn't until I said it out loud when I said, oh, I'm a lesbian, when I first actually came out to someone other than myself and said it, that I realized the label didn't fit me. You know,
mm,
like that
mm,
wasn't like that's not me. That's when I started to think about again like my gender identity rather than just my sex, and that's when I like start to realize, you know what? No, like I am like trans. Because for a while too, like in college, starting to take LGBT classes and start to learn more about the trans community and trans people. There was a lot of times when those thoughts would come back, and then I would try to weigh the cons and the pros of like transitioning versus
mm,
non transitioning, and I will try to tell myself that I didn't have to transition. You know, like, oh, I've lived all these years, like 20 something years, without transitioning, without thinking about it. Like, I don't need to do it. But then one of the things that really pushed me to actually transition was Caitlyn Jenner, just
mm,
because I thought to myself, she's like 60 something. I was like, I don't want to transition when I'm in my 60s. I want to transition now. I want to do it now. And I also got very depressed at some point, which I mean, it's a very bad thing, but it came as a blessing in disguise in a way because it pushed me to actually seek out therapy and start my transition.
wow.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so, and I actually forgot about that part, but
Mhm.
seeking out therapy and, this is while you're starting to transition, what was, you're just coming to grips with like, I think this is what I want to do. And
Mhm.
now you're opening up to someone about it. So
Yeah,
that's a huge turnaround. What is that like?
it is. So after like once I got like depressed, I was like depressed for a week, and I was like going to class. And I remember very clearly, I turned around. I was like, no, I can't do it. I was so depressed. I was like, no, I can't go to class. So I went straight into like the little like offices like on campus at UC where they offered therapy, and I was like, oh, I need to see a therapist. So they just like they were like, here you go. Like they would ask me first, like, oh, are you trying to hurt yourself? Are you gonna hurt somebody else? I'm like, no. I'm like, no, I'm not.
Which is actually in college for those of you guys tuning in right now. It's a very real thing, but it's just so funny to be like, no, I'm actually here to talk about
Yeah.
like a very I'm gonna go through.
Yeah, I'm like unrelated. I'm like, no, I'm not trying to hurt myself. I'm not gonna hurt anybody. They were like, great. So they gave me this form to fill out, which I did, and they were like, okay, well, we don't have any appointments available right now until like a month from now. This was back in, I think it was 2015. It was like September, October 2015.
Mm.
And they were like, you can't see a therapist until like a month. I was like, oh, great. Well, and then I just went back to my room, but I was like, you know what? I could sit here like depressed, just like waiting for 1 month for that appointment to happen to actually like figure out if this is something I really want to do, or I could actually like try to educate myself and try to like look for resources. Just because there was a part of me that was like hesitant, because I never had like dysphoria with certain areas of my body, like trans
Mm.
people do. So that was one of the things that would always make me hesitant and be like, oh, maybe I'm not like trans. Maybe I don't need to transition. So I was like, you know what? Let me look into different trans people and their stories. So during that month when I was waiting for my appointment, I
Mm.
pretty much would go. I would skip classes a lot just because I was so depressed, but I would still go to work because that was a responsibility that I had committed to, and that's I had to do. So I would still go to work, but pretty much after work and occasionally going to class, I would go back to my room and I would watch YouTube videos on different trans people. And like nothing was really connecting. Nobody's story was like truly connecting. Yeah, everybody had the same thing. We're growing up. They like playing with boy toys instead of girl toys. They like, they were tomboyish and all that. I'm like, yeah, that was me. But there was nothing like they would talk about gender dysphoria, so areas of their body that they were uncomfortable with. And I was like, well,
Mm.
I'm not uncomfortable with that. I don't relate to that person's story. Um, so then I came across a documentary on YouTube, and I
What
forgot
was
the
it
name of the
called?
documentary.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
remember the name. I know. It was one of those. It was one of like it's a YouTube specific documentary, and it was about trans people and their transition. And there was somebody's story that kind of just like really resonated with me. And then I actually started to cry. Like that's how much it resonated with me. Where I was like, yes, that's me.
Wow.
And then on that same like after I finished that video, there was one on there was this one random like I think it was like Clever News or like one of those Mojo ones. I think it was of like top 10 trans people you didn't know were trans, or like or
Mm-hmm.
top 10 hottest trans guys. I think it was actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, let me look at that. And I came across somebody named Buck Angel. He's an adult performer, if you will, and he's also an activist. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he had a documentary on Netflix called Mr. Angel. And I watched it, and I really, really resonated with him because there was I don't want to get too into like detail on this, but
No, it's okay.
I basically because I never had bottom dysphoria,
Mm.
you catch my
Yeah.
drift there. And so I thought that's why I wasn't like allowed to like really be trans, or that I wasn't really trans. And then I came across Buck Angel, and his whole thing is like, oh, I'm like a guy, and I have I'm different stairs, and he like really embraced that. So I really connected with that, and that's when I realized, you know what? Yes, this is me. Like I need to do this. So finally, when the appointment did come around, I like I pretty much knew what I wanted. I was like, oh, I need a gender
Mm.
therapist, because you need a specific therapist if you're gonna
Yes.
transition.
Yes.
So I was like, oh, I need to talk to a gender therapist. And the
Hmm.
lady, she pretty much asked me, like, she wanted to make sure that I was sure. And I was like, yep. So she sent me to someone that was close to campus. They didn't, well, she claimed that there was nobody on campus that I could talk to. So she sent me to this other place off campus, which was free, thankfully. So I didn't have to pay. Anybody under 25 doesn't have to pay.
Wow.
I think the name of the program was Colors Youth. So they do free gender therapy. So I went there. And yeah, this was like January, because I got my appointment finally in December. So then a month later in January, that's when I got my appointment with my gender therapist. And yeah, I went to therapy for like 3-4 months. And then I came up to my mom, which was interesting.
So this whole time you haven't told anyone either in your close
No,
network or your family. Okay, so first
yeah.
person you're telling is mom.
Well, I
What?
had told some friends actually. I had told some friends that I wanted to do it.
Hmm.
Uh, this was during like the December timeline. No, like November, December. I
End
told
of
some
end of
friends.
2015. End of 2015.
Yeah, end of
Yes.
2015.
Hmm.
I told some friends. Then eventually I kind of got the guts to tell my sister, because she's one of the person. Well, she's one of the people I always told everything, because we tell each other everything. So I kind of told her. So she was kind of, I don't know about that. Like, I don't know if you're really. She didn't believe I was really trans. I mean, there isn't
Mm.
really a way to
Yeah.
predict those things, but she was a little like on the fence about me being trans. Now, of course, she's very accepting and everything, but she was a little on the fence in the beginning. But she still knew. Like, I told her, and she was like, "When are you gonna tell my mom?" And I kept being, I was hesitant about telling her, just because I was afraid of what her reaction was gonna be.
Mm.
Because she grew up like in Mexico, very traditional and everything, and I wasn't entirely sure what her views were on trans people. I knew she was okay with like gay people and all that, like LGBT
Yeah.
I didn't know how she would feel about me specifically being trans. And one of the reasons I hesitated so much with my transition was because I didn't want to make my mom go through the whole transition thing. Because I didn't know how she was going to react, and I didn't want to take
Mm.
away from her, like, the child that she knew. So it was a little like hard coming out to her. So I couldn't do it like in person. I wrote an email to her,
Oh
and I
my
waited
God.
until, yeah. I wrote an email to her like way back in December, but I didn't actually send her until like later, because she was working in Alaska still, and I was gonna send it to her while she was at work, but my sister was like, no, you know what, you should wait, because we are both afraid to like,
Yeah.
we didn't know how she was gonna react. We are like, what if she's not okay with this, and what if she tries to commit suicide or something like that?
Wait,
That
so
was a thought that actually went through our heads.
yes, really quickly, just sorry to interrupt you, Charlie. So you said you drafted the email, but you never sent it out up to that point.
Uh,
Like you hadn't sent it out yet, right?
No, like it took me like months to send it out. I didn't send it out until like April when she got
Got it.
here.
Got it. Okay. Okay. So sorry about that. Yeah, but yes.
No, yeah. So I hung up, yeah, like I wanted to send it earlier, but my sister was like, no, you know what? No, don't do it. Wait until she's here.
Hmm.
And I'm with her just in case, like to see how she reacts. I was like, you know what? Okay, yeah, let's wait. Let's see.
Well, that's kind
Because
of
there's always
that's
this, because you want to be positive, like you want to, believe the best, but you never know. Like there's a lot of parents who disown their trans children, and there's a lot of parents who don't take it well. So we wanted to make sure my mom was gonna be uh, okay and safe. She wasn't gonna do anything rash. So I thought, you know what, that's a good idea. Let's wait.
yeah.
So as I was going to therapy, like my gender therapist, she kept asking me, like, so when are you gonna tell your mom? When are you gonna tell your mom? Like, I haven't told my mom
Oh my
yet.
gosh.
I was like, well, I'll tell her when she comes back. Like my sister and I have decided it's the best thing is to wait for her, because we don't know how she's gonna react. So then, after she got here, even I was still a little like hesitant. Like she came back in April of 2016, and I was still hesitant to tell her. Uh, then my therapist was like, you know what, you need to do this. I was like, you know what, she's right. I need to do it. So I was sitting in my college dorm and I sent it to her. And then my sister was there. I was like, "Are you there? Like, I'm gonna send it now." She was like, "Yeah, send it now." So I sent it to her, and then my sister was like, "You need to check your email." And I was like, "Why do I need to check my email?" And then she was like, "Just check it." And then she checked it, and then I guess I didn't write the email as well as I thought I did, because somehow they thought I was like suicidal. I commit suicide. I was like,
Oh
no.
my God. Oh
I was
no.
like, that is not at all what I'm trying to do here. Like, I no, that's not something that's ever gone through my head. That's not happening here. Like, you know. But yeah, like I told her, and then I believe it was that same month where I came back from home from UCLA, and then she didn't tell me anything. She was just like, and I was like, okay, why isn't she saying anything? And then my sister's like, we were gonna go on a family vacation at the time. So my sister's like, oh, I think she wants to talk to you after the vacation in case things go weird. So get weird. So we went to on our vacation to like San Diego for a while. We did a little family vacation for like a week. And like during the whole thing, like she never mentioned anything to me. You know, we never really discussed it.
Mm.
And then we came back from the vacation, and then she was like, oh, do you want to go to like Tierra Mia with me, which is like a kind of Starbucks that's in like Huntington Park where we used to live. And then I was like, oh my God, here it
This is
comes. I
it.
was like,
This is
yeah,
it. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I was like, yeah, I'll go with you. We walked to La Tierra Mia, and like she didn't say anything, you know. It was kind of awkward, to be honest.
Mm.
And then we ordered our coffee, and then we sat outside because I had a little patio thing outside. And then we started to finally talk about it. She also was a little like, kind of like, are you sure, you know, like, are you sure this is what you want and all that? But she still was supportive, you know, because her
Mm.
whole thing was, you know, she brought up my dad and how my dad would have wanted me to be happy. And I do genuinely believe that if my dad was alive, he would have been like over the moon, like me being trans, because like she even said like she always wanted to have like a boy, and like yeah, we do have my brother, but I think she would have been he would have been very excited for me to be trans, especially because I was so close to
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so one of the reasons why she was so accepting was like, you know, your dad, this is what he would have wanted. He would have been okay with this, so it's okay. But she wanted me to wait a whole year because she was like, her whole thing was like she's accepting now, but in the beginning she was a little like, you know what, I want to me that you're trans, and I was like, whoa, like
Wait, what did she say?
how is
Sorry,
that
I
gonna
missed
work?
that. Repeat it one more time.
She wanted me to prove to her that I was trans. I was like, whoa,
Mm.
like how is
Okay.
that gonna work? Like, yeah. So she wanted me to wait a whole year, and I was like, oh no, that's not gonna happen. You know, like I waited like enough as it is.
Mm.
I can't wait like an entire year to do it. So yeah, like I waited like a few months because I wanted to do it right away. Like I was gonna come out to her, and then I was gonna start right away.
Mm.
That was my whole intent, like because I was like, I'm ready, but at the same time, like she wasn't ready, which is something my sister brought to me, like, yeah, you might be ready, but my mom isn't ready. You need to give her time to be ready, which was true. I did need to give her a little, you know, because that's the first time she heard anything about this. She had no idea what I had these thoughts in my head of like being trans. I'm on mission.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did give her like a few months, and then of course, coming September, starting the school year, that's when I started my transition, September 2016.
And it's so we're here now. We're here that you're starting to go through this
Yeah.
transition. You've had the conversations with yourself. You've done the research. You've now talked to your sister. You've talked to your family. You've kind of opened up a little bit with your closer friends and network.
Mhm.
And so you're going through it now. Just
Yeah.
take us through that.
Well, in terms of coming out to like friends and stuff, everybody was very accepting. I was scared, terrified of doing it.
Of course.
But like, just because you never know how people are gonna react. But everybody was extremely accepting. Like even before I came out to my boss, Lupe. Before coming out
Mm-hmm.
to her, like, I was hesitant to come out to her. And then Jesus, a friend at UCLA, like
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, he was one of the first people I told, and he was one of the first ones that started to like call me by my name, Charlie, and
Yeah.
everything. And I believe he was the one that, because I was so hesitant to tell Lupe, and I wanted my name tag switched.
Yes.
I wanted to have my name on my name tag. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and then and then around that same time, I actually started to bind. Like one of my way to hint at it was like binding myself. Putting on a binder to like hide the girls, if you
Mm-hmm.
will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was one of my ways to kind of hint at it, but nobody would say anything. So I was like, okay, I don't know how I feel about
Yeah.
it. And then, and it's funny too. I forgot to mention this, I guess, because growing up, like my mom always wanted me to cut my hair like very short. But my whole thing was like I would fight. My whole thing was like, oh no, like I'm gonna feel like a boy. So I would always fight it. So that's something I actually just thought about that. So I even cut my hair like really short and everything. I was like, yeah, I'm a guy. And I started to bite and everything. So I was starting to make all these changes, and still at
Yeah.
work, nobody would say anything. I was like, dang, like, how do I tell Lupe?
Yeah.
So Jesus was like, you know what? Do you want me to talk to her for you? I was like, yes, please talk to her for me. So he did, and then he was like, hey, Charlie, could you come to the office? I was like, well, my other name,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I was like, oh my God. I was very nervous when she called me to her office. And then she was like, Jesus had brought this to my attention that you wanna be called Charlie and everything. I was like, yeah. And then she was like, great. And she was very accepting. I was like, oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure that this was something you really wanted and not something like Jesus was pushing you to do. I was like, oh no, this is something I really want.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day I was, just going about like doing my work and everything. And Lupe was passing by. She was coming out from the human resources office. And
Mm.
then she was holding a name tag on her hand. I was like, oh, what's going on there? And then she's like, here you go. I was like, what is that? And then I looked at it because I was afraid to go to HR myself to do it.
Mm.
I was still very hesitant, It was in the beginning stages, and, you never know. And then she just like hands it to me, and then it was like Charlie on the name tag. I was so happy. I was like, oh my God. Like I wanted to hug her, but I was like, I don't know if I can hug her.
Still keeping
But
that
it was amazing.
professionalism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, shout out to Jesus. We love
Yeah.
Jesus for that.
Mhm.
That's got to be, like you said, it's powerful. You seeing that name that you know is correct for you, and you being in a rush of happiness, and you wanting to hug Lupe, but you're like trying to still stay professional.
Yeah.
So, what was that like? What did that do for you? Now that you even a small thing like that, but that means so much. What did that mean for you, both short term for the rest of that day, and then even long term in continuing with your transition?
It was like amazing, to be honest. Like it was one of the most exciting things in my life, one of the happiest moments in my life. Of course, in the beginning, it was a little difficult for people to get used to calling me by my name. Like they would often like a lot of people would mess up and like call me by by that
Mm-hmm,
name. But I
hmm.
mean, that's one of the things you gotta be understanding, because that's gonna happen a lot in the beginning.
Mm,
Uh, so that's one of the things that you have to be patient. Like even just like transitioning, it's something that requires a lot of patience.
yeah.
Because like especially during that first year, well, first 6 months for me, there's gonna be a lot of misgendering. Um, like it took me like 6 months into hormones for me to like stop getting misgendered so much, because it was like
Mm,
a constant thing. And that's one of the strange things, because like I guess I don't know, like I don't like going through life, like you always like you're always like technically being like you were so used to like you were always being called by a certain pronoun. But
Mm,
it's like once you come out to yourself and once you like know that you're trans and that this is your identity, being misgendered is actually very hurtful. Like you really feel it. Like
mm,
even though it's a pronoun you've heard all your life, like once you realize that that's not you, it becomes a uh, hurtful thing in a way. You know, like you know it's wrong. Like it's cringy hearing that pronoun being said. Like
mm.
you're like your old name and everything being called by your old name and all that. It becomes
Yeah,
kind of cringy.
yeah.
So that's one of the interesting things I noticed. Like I don't know, like you would think like having been called by a certain pronoun all your life, it wouldn't be so hard to adjust to people um, uh, using your proper pronouns, like your pronouns. But it actually really is. Like it's like cringy to hear that other pronoun, especially when you know who you are as a person, your identity and all that. But yeah, going back to the name thing,
Yeah, no
it
worries.
was very exciting.
Yeah,
I was very happy. Yeah, it was very, very exciting to see it. And I think it meant a lot to me too, the fact that it was Lupe who was like, here you go. Because
mm,
I was so afraid of like not knowing how she was gonna react. So the fact that she herself, without me asking her to do it, just kind of went into the human resources office and got me a new name tag. That just kind of felt amazing to me.
yeah.
And yeah, it was great.
No, absolutely. It's something that many of us, myself included, that we don't have even, that's such a big thing, but it might seem so minor, but it's such a big thing that,
Mhm.
we
It
don't
really
have
is.
to even deal with. But just seeing how
Mhm.
powerful and how much of impact it had on you is just, it's very inspiring from the outside
Yeah,
looking in. And it's really awesome to see you glowing with this joy
yeah,
and happiness, because I know how much that means to you. And
yeah.
I kind of, in this time you are in college,
Mhm.
UCLA, what were those adjustments like within your environment, within your living space, with the people you most frequently interacted with? What was all that like?
It was interesting because although like all my friends were always very accepting and all that, it was also like a lot of kind of coming out to myself, and I was so separated. Like even though I was taking classes on like LGBTQ plus issues and all that, it was still a lot of coming out to myself and me learning how to do all these things, like binding from it. For example, uh, like I was like I don't know why, like I was like oh no, like I was kind of I don't want to say afraid, but there was a part of me that was like I can't just order a binder online. Like I can't have that showing in my bank statement and all
Mm.
that. But like almost like buying like an old toy when you're like,
Yeah.
I was very hesitant. But like, I so it was one of those things where you kind of had to slowly kind of come out to yourself and then just like embrace it and everything. And because at first I was like, I know I started using, I think it was like a sports bra or something.
Mhm.
And then I used this like bandage thing which it didn't even work because like if anybody trans is watching, do not use ace bandaging because that thing that thing is very dangerous because it adjusts. Like it will get tighter and tighter and tighter, and
Mm.
it might compress your ribs and all that. So don't use that.
Don't
But
use it.
I never used it. That was one of the things I knew like not to use.
Mm.
Uh, but yeah, like I used some other real weird random thing, and I was like, "Well, this isn't working. I need a proper binder." So then I got one off of Amazon, which was like really cheap. Like it did the trick, but like the quality wasn't great.
Mm.
So yeah, like it took me a while to buy a like proper binder, which was life changing by the way. Like
Yeah.
finding a proper binder, I was like, yes, this is it.
Mm.
But in terms of relationships with other people, like my friends were always very accepting and everything. It was just like the whole getting used to the new name and like the different pronouns. And it was interesting because I had roommates at the time. I was living apartments. Excuse me. I was living in the apartment, so I had one of my friends was my roommate from high school. So coming out to her, she was like extremely accepting. She was totally cool with it. And unfortunately, the way the apartment was set up, it was 2 rooms. So it was me and my friend in one room, and then our other 2 roommates in the other room. And uh, we never really interacted much with our other roommates, just because like I don't particularly like them a lot, and my friend didn't particularly like them either.
Okay.
So we didn't interact much with them. But I mean, obviously, they were gonna start to notice changes, so I had to come out to them. Which I mean, they were still like they didn't care, like because we didn't really interact much with each other, so they didn't mind that I was transitioning.
Mhm.
They were okay with it. And then, oh no, wait, this was never mind. They were not my roommates. I was roommates with Jen. Do you remember Jen? She used to work with me.
Yes.
With us, yeah. I
Yes.
was roommates with Jen and with another friend of ours, Clara. And yeah, coming out to them, Jen is actually one of the first people I came out to as well.
Mm.
And she was very accepting with it. Clara was a little hesitant coming out to her,
Mm.
just because we were kind of like both kind of tomboys, if you will. So
Yeah.
we always kind of like connected in that way, and I kind of felt like I was betraying her by transitioning. That's another thing, because I had foreign friendships with a lot of like uh, gay women, like lesbian women.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a part of me that felt like I was betraying them by transitioning.
Mm.
That was just like a feeling that I had, just because I had like labeled myself as a lesbian, and then I was like, oh shoot, that ain't it. That's not me. So when I did start to transition, I did generally feel like I was betraying that friendship. So I was a little more hesitant to come out to them.
Mm.
They were still very accepting, of course. But yeah, my more awkward interactions were with my female as they were with my more male friends. Just because I feel like they didn't know how to act around me, if you will. Like they didn't know how to treat me. And and me growing up, like I never, like I always had guy friends, but I never acted in a particularly masculine way.
Mm.
And I still don't really do. Like most people that know me think I'm a gay straight dude, a gay guy, like a cisgender gay male.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Know that I'm trans, and
Mm.
then when they find out I'm trans, they're like, "Oh, that explains some of your mannerisms," because they are a little. Some of them can be feminine. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
one of those things in the beginning where I did feel very about, and where I thought I had to act more masculine. But as I, of course, went more deeper into my transition, I started to realize that I really did. Like, there is no one to be like a guy. So I'm like, why do I have to be this like bro kind of like macho guy when I'm really not? Like
Mm.
even when people like bro like a little like weird about it, just because I'm like it feels like I'm being dragged into that hyper masculine space.
Yeah.
I'm just like, because I never say like "What's up, bro?" Like I never say "bro" back. That's just
Yeah.
not like the way I talk,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things I thought I had to change. But I mean, I
Mm.
really like now being deeper into my transition. I don't care. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's one of those things you had to learn to like kind of, and it's one of the things that like as you transition, like everybody's narrative is different,
Mm.
and you have to kind of learn what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Like being like super masculine and all that isn't really something that worked with me. Like it almost felt wrong for me to try to like do that sort of thing. So I like stopped trying to do that a long time ago. I'm like, if you want to like chill and hang, like you can like call me dude and bro and all that, but like don't expect me to call you like bro back.
Yeah. 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 Well,
That's just like,
you kind of talked about the difficulty with, after your transition with, your male friends in particular, and
mhm,
so microaggressions in terms of anyone when you go through a transition and as you're further on your journey,
mhm.
did you ever feel that from whether it's friends, whether it's people you didn't really know, maybe being treated differently, even in a space that's so common that maybe like I feel like I'm being treated differently because they might be already having their prejudices towards me because of how I may look, stereotyping? What was that like?
I never had any issues with that with like friends. Uh, Working in customer service though, I would I did notice some customers who were like especially early on, like they didn't know how to address me or like how
Mm,
to like respond to me, you know. A lot of them would be like, sir, and then I would turn around, and since I had like less facial hair, they'll be like, oh, never mind, like, ma'am, which I will be like cringe because I'm like, no, you got it right the first
yeah,
time.
yeah. They're going off of what they're seeing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then some of them would be like, sir, ma'am, like they wouldn't know what pronouns to
Mm,
use, which was one of the things that I realized like I hadn't really thought about how gendered our society was until after I transitioned. How we pretty much gender everything, and like that there's this need to like gender everything.
mhm.
So yeah, in terms of like microaggressions with friends and all that, or like I never noticed any of those with them. I know like even for like lectures, for my lectures, I would even like early on because I didn't really read SML. I would email the professors and my TAs beforehand and let them know, like, especially because I hadn't legally changed my name yet. I still haven't. I need to get around to doing that. Uh, so I would email them and let them know, like, hey, this is how my name shows up, but this is my, like, I need you to go with this name, those pronouns. And they always did. Like, they never asked me any questions about that. They always used they would always like try to like if they knew like who I was that I was a person that emailed, they would try to always remember to go with my male pronouns and things like that. With classmates, I never bothered. You know, I'm like if I try to correct every single person that misgenders me, I'm gonna
Yeah,
be miserable.
yeah,
And there's no point.
yeah.
So I'm like, if you get it right, you get it right. If not, I don't know you. I don't care. And that's just one of those things that you have to learn. Like, you can't win every battle. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
So you have to like pick your battles with
Absolutely. It's yeah, I think you just kind of hit on the head when you said if I were to really correct everyone that misproperly,
that. Hmm.
use their pronouns with me, I would be miserable. That really resonated with me because you are also coming from a place of understanding and understanding in the sense that you know that people are adjusting as well and you're being the bigger person and you're okay with knowing what's really important and not
Hmm.
letting that overtake your happiness because this is a monumental moment for you. You are doing what feels like you, and that's the most important. And I'm beyond happy to hear that's even where you were even a couple years ago, a few years ago.
Hmm.
Um, a lot about the narrative, and we'll kind of get back into it too, but I just kind of wanted to give context to the audience, whoever may be viewing and listening and hearing Charlie's story here today in transitioning with family, in the
Hmm.
university, in the workspace, in your living space, so many different places of adjustment, not even just from a behavioral standpoint, but from verbiage and dialogue.
Hmm.
But people may be wondering, like, why the hell are Kevin and Charlie even how so I want in your words, I would love for you to share with the audience about how we met and how we know each other and how our relationship grew.
Yeah. Well, we started out because originally like Lupe was my manager,
Mhm.
and then Tony, our like old manager, he got bumped up a position. So then Lupe took his position. So then Lupe's position became open. And then that's when they brought you in. And I know in the beginning, who started talking to each other? I don't remember who started talking to who, to be honest.
Who?
But I always have this thing where I feel like people don't like me in the beginning.
Okay. Where's this going? Lara? You said Lara?
No, I mean like I don't remember. Did you start talking to me first, or did I start talking to you first? I always forget that.
It I mean, it might have been me just because it's like it was
Yeah.
my job to make sure everything was, happening. But
Mhm.
so say that happens, so we start talking.
Yeah. Like I think connected right away. Like I usually have this feeling that people don't like me when I try to talk to them. Just because I don't know. Sometimes when I try to be friendly, if I come out like too strongly, but like with you, I never had that issue. Like I
Mm,
feel like I felt like very connected to you right away. So yeah, like it was because I think I was already like the supervisor back then.
mm-hmm.
So we would end up having to work together a lot.
Yes.
And yeah, like I had to fill you in on a lot of the things as well, like how the stock
Mm-hmm.
rooms work and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's how kind of how we started talking.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah.
and and we're just referring back to the years. We're talking late 2016, early 2017, and that was the awesome part because um, I had kind of stepped into that role around that time,
Mhm. Oh
in
yeah,
mid
because that's when I
2017.
started to transition too.
And so I remember even that relationship where we got to work a lot together
Oh, yes.
and just really just listening to you because I'd always known about it, but to know, I think it's always different when you can personalize it and you know someone. And I was just so interested in being like, how the hell are you navigating that? We're already at,
Mhm.
you know, you're already dealing with so much, being at a
Yeah.
university and working. And we were one of those at the
Yeah.
time when I was a student as well, I had to work, and so that's
Uh-huh.
another beast that for those that are fortunate enough to just go to school and they don't have to work, that was something that we had to worry about. So you're
Mhm.
adding an additional thing on your plate. I was just always really intrigued, like, how the hell is
Yeah.
he doing that? And
We're
so,
always very supportive.
what was that?
And you very supportive, like trying to help me out and everything. So I always appreciated that too.
No, and thank you. And I loved our conversation that
Hmm.
we would share every day. We shared a lot of same sentiments about many things, whether it was the workplace or it was school or it was people. Just it was really awesome to be like, we come from two completely different worlds, but we saw eye to eye on a lot of things, and that's what ultimately made working really fun. Because especially when you're
Yeah.
on the clock, and
Hmm.
I remember the times when, because I was already working, I think when you went on vacation you were gone. And I remember you'd always tell me every time you would be gone for more than a couple of days. You always kind of give me a heads
Yeah.
up. You give me that courtesy, and I'd be like, Charlie, you can't leave. Everything's in fall apart. And
Right.
I always cherish those small moments because those are
Yeah.
still so big. Like you still cared enough for me to be in a good enough position to do my job when
Hmm.
you would be gone and you were a
Yeah.
huge void. Um, so
Thank you.
that's just a little context for those that are listening that Charlie and I had worked together before, and
Yeah.
it was really awesome. And and
Hmm.
and Charlie, and so you're now post grad, well into
Hmm.
post grad. What has the adjustment been like? And obviously, you're further in your transition, so you're
Hmm.
getting better and more acclimated. But have you ever
Oh,
experienced any difficulties or adversities post grad, and kind of about your identity and maybe from others, or what was that like?
well, after graduating, and then just real quickly, like, I do want to touch, like, when you do start to transition, like, you constantly have to come out to people.
Mm,
Like, it is something that does happen. Like you said, like, I had to come out at work. I had to come up with different for all my different lectures, because I was at school.
yeah.
There's a lot of people that you have to come out to. So there's a constant coming out. But once I graduated, I took like a year off,
Mm.
which I think uh like I didn't intend for it to be a year during because we moved to LA from LA to where I live now, Riverside. So it was kind of just adjusting to because my entire support system, my social circle, it was in LA. So moving here to Riverside, I didn't really know anybody. And I didn't really like feel like going out. So I think I was slightly depressed, but I didn't know it.
Mm, yeah.
But it was like, again, like a blessing in disguise. Because during that whole year where I was just pretty much at home, uh, I transitioned even further. Like I was able to grow more facial hair. My facial features changed more and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I came more into me during that time. So by the time I had to like actually go to job interviews, uh, they were it wasn't me so much me like, oh, by the way, this is, I want you to call me this, like having to tell them
Mm.
uh, this is, this is who I am. It was more like having to explain to them why the name on the resume was different.
Maybe a little, yeah, yeah.
Like, yeah, why because they would expect a certain person to show up, and then when I
Yeah,
would show up, it was just me trying explaining, like, yo,
yeah,
I
yeah,
can't.
yeah.
So one of the things I think, because I work retail right now,
Mm.
one of the things that attracted me to kind of just work for retail instead of going for like an office job is like, I had tried office jobs before. I don't really like it.
Yeah.
I feel like my identity wasn't as respected. It was still early in
Mm.
my transition as well, but it still felt like it wasn't a space for me to occupy. It didn't feel like the proper place for me to be in. And I've also been more on the creative side, and I like moving around. So just being kind of stuck in an office wasn't my thing.
Mm.
So I went back to retail because that's what I had done at UCLA. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing, and yeah, like I don't think I can say where I work because
Yeah, no, no.
I'm like
Let's not do
confidential.
that. Let's not do that.
Yeah, but I do work retail now. Uh, there I am more comfortable there. Like everybody respects me. Everybody like there is no like I mean, there shouldn't be any misgendering. I'm completely passed as,
Yeah.
male. So that's privilege to have able to
Mm.
pass. So a lot of people, like I said before, they just assume I'm a cisgender, like biological guy that is just gay because of my mannerisms.
So,
And then,
so,
and then when I come out to some of them, they're, oh,
yeah.
just kidding.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was interesting adjusting though, because you do notice a lot of differences,
Yeah.
like the way people interact with you, like moving from this female space into a male space. You do notice a lot of changes. I will
Mm.
say that. Like, for example, before I transitioned, uh, one, I wasn't entirely comfortable walking alone at night. And two, if I did
Mm.
walk alone by myself, like anywhere, I was always very paranoid. Like if there was a dude walking behind me, I was always very paranoid. I would like move to the side, let them pass, or I would pretend I was talking to the
Mm.
phone and stuff. Now though, like as soon as I started to pass, I went out the window. And I'm like, I'm alone at night
Wow.
without like a care in the world, which I mean, I should still be careful because everybody gets jumped,
Yeah.
not just women. But
Yeah.
something I did notice is
Wow.
that one thing that I used to do where I would look back to look at the guy behind me, I noticed a lot of women do that to me now. Now I'm the
Mm.
creepy guy walking behind behind the ladies. But the thing is
Oh.
that I know why they're doing it. I know that they're
Mm.
doing it because they're paranoid and because they're afraid and they don't know if I'm gonna try anything.
And you can actually
So
understand that from a place of personal, you can really
exactly.
empathize with them. Yeah.
So because I understand that that's what's going on and that's what they're doing, I usually what I'll do is I'll move to the other side of the street. I'll cross the street so
Wow.
that they don't have to worry about my presence, like me following them or
Lurking
whatever.
almost. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you do notice these things, and there's also this thing that at work that I started to notice where like this has to do a lot with like male privilege that I kind of stepped into without really wanting to or
Mm.
like without intentionally, and it's like people often I'm the manager, uh like even if my manager is standing right next to me, when people come off to like drop off job applications or whatever, they skip her and then come straight to me and they introduce
Mm.
to me and
Wow.
they're like, oh, are you hiring? And even if I know the answer, because uh, as a courtesy to her, I'll be like, I don't know, like, are we hiring? So I'll turn to her, be like, she's
Mm.
the boss, not me. I did notice that a lot. Like now people think I have like, just because I now occupy this male space,
Mm,
white male space really,
yeah.
even though I'm not like 100% white,
Yeah.
people assume I'm the authority, like I'm the boss, I'm the manager.
Mm,
While as before, that never happened before. Before I transitioned, it was always like, oh, I would like to speak to your manager. Like, where's the manager? And now people just come to me and like, oh, like, here's my job application. Like, are you hiring? And I'm like, oh, I don't gotta ask her. Like, she's the
yeah.
boss. And even though, and even when there's like customer complaints, like she'll argue with them or whatever, like she'll like try to appease them, and they still turn to me for answers oftentimes. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm part of the management team, but this is not my store. I'm not the manager. She's the manager. Like,
Mm,
you know, that is
yeah.
something I noticed.
Well, what was that? Not only dealing, like you had mentioned, stepping into the male privilege of you didn't want, and then also seeing the negatives of like, making those responsible moves to make other people feel more uncomfortable,
Yeah.
more comfortable in like moving, maybe in the other side of the street, like those little things that you had said.
Mm-hmm.
But, in the workspace,
Mm-hmm.
you talked about you them just seeing past you,
Yeah.
seeing past your boss and going straight to you. And I even appreciate you recognizing that privilege, but you also being of I kind of want to touch a little bit to
Mm-hmm.
you being of a lighter skin complexion, but you also
Yeah.
still being a person of color, and
Mm-hmm.
talking about how that kind of plays into this your identity. So if you can just quickly let everyone know if you're comfortable with sharing, your ethnicities, and maybe like you being of a lighter skin complexion, even though you're a person of
Mm-hmm.
color, how that's kind of played into your identity.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm Mexican, German, and Romanian. And although like, well, my dad, of course, being German, Romanian, he was very white.
Mm,
So we got our light skin from him.
mm,
Like my mom, she's Mexican, but she's a lighter skin
mm,
Mexican woman as well. Even though like on her side of the family, it's like it goes from like dark to light. Like there's different
yeah.
shades. But we're on the lighter side of the scale, of course. And it's interesting because oftentimes people just assume we're white.
Mm,
Even like people like within the Hispanic community. Like I've had this thing where people will talk crap to me in Spanish because they think I'm white, and then I respond in Spanish, and they're shocked. Of course, they're like, "Oh snap!" You know, that wasn't supposed to happen.
yeah.
But it is one of those things that notice, and like I know like there's a lot of racial issues going on and all that, but that's one of the things that we never ourselves had to deal with in a sense. There has been
Mm,
some discrimination from like, fellow Hispanic people kind of just assuming and like I said, talking crap
yeah. Yeah.
in Spanish and all that. But having like being of a lighter complexion, I don't know, like growing up, we never racism wasn't something we ever spoke in my family. Like
Mm,
even like in Mexico, like nowhere. So there was always a discrimination issue against uh, Mexican people and all that.
mm,
And my sister and I kind of being like separated a lot from, and like we're not victims by any means, of course. Like this is like we understand, of course. Like being always, but we always felt more separated from like fellow like the Hispanic community in a way,
mm,
because for example, in high school, you had all these like you would have big groups of like Mexican kids or like a lot of Hispanic kids kind of like hanging out with each other, and we kind of like to us like we didn't see a point to doing that, like people
yeah.
separating themselves in their little groups,
Mm,
because we always like my sister and I, and like really our family always been about inclusivity.
yes.
So we always thought like, for us it's always educating yourself, getting to know more people rather than secluding yourself in your little group. Uh, just because it's like, because my brother did this too. Like in high school, he would only hang out with Spanish speaking kids,
Mm,
which now it kind of has affected him because his English is like, yeah, like I have a very thick accent. So like I like English is like I understand everything, I can speak everything, I have an accent, but I can still say whatever I want. Like, but my brother has a very hard time speaking in English, and like putting sentences together because he got so used to kind of being separated, like he separated himself. So that's one of the things uh, that my sister and I were always like, why do people separate themselves? Like, this is something that we never really
mm,
um,
mm.
completely understood.
Yeah.
And I think about like, because we never like the Hispanic community never really, they don't really see us as part of the community per se because of our light
Mm,
skin color.
yeah.
And but you also have like white people that don't really like I've had like I've had like a lot of white older men make fun of my accent, like working at UCLA, like retail and things like that. uh, I've had people make fun of my accent, which I'm like, you know what? Whatever. If you want to make fun of me because I can say a word, it's fine. Like it doesn't hurt me, and like it doesn't make you a better person for doing that either.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things where I don't know. You kind of feel like you don't fit in certain spaces, even though you are part of those spaces.
Mm,
You know?
absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to describe.
No, I think Charlie, you hit it. Man, you hit it right on the head. You you are one of the most honest and genuine and wonderful people I know, and I really mean that.
Thank you.
You have experience and are part of a lot of communities, whether
Mhm.
you I still identify with them or they're part of your past,
Yeah.
they're still part of your journey, and you have so much that you have so much of this now, even just the transition and doing those small things like
Mhm.
you're the one that used to look back and now you're the one like you had said the creepy guy you're now moving but you're actually moving and
Yeah.
so and even just identifying with multiple ethnicities and dealing with the complex of a lighter skin complexion still being a
Mhm.
person of color.
Yeah.
It makes you so dense and so rich but most importantly most open-minded, and I love that you are just a part of the solution to continue to educate me and everyone else that cannot directly understand but want to hear and want to learn. So I just, a side note, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for going so deep and being so open about your story. I did want to ask you
Mhm.
something to kind of specifically talk to our audience. And for those of you that are tuning in, listening to Charlie's narrative, the adversity of dealing with your father's passing, the dynamic of having the support of your mother and getting closer to her and that affecting your relationship with your sister and going through your transition and all the spaces you had to go through
Mhm.
in work, in society, at home, every
Yeah.
space, coming out to your mom, working with a therapist, going through all the negative, positive things in your life, all the spaces you've been in, everything you've learned, Charlie. What would you say to 13, 14-year-old self,
Mhm.
whether it's you or a 13 or 14-year-old out there who may be starting to experience the same things that you've already walked in your journey? What would you say if you can speak directly to them right now? What would you tell them?
I would just say to like, don't try to please everybody. You know, be a little more selfish. Like I knew always what I wanted. I knew, and there's a part of me like I am very happy. I'm like I love being trans, and I think it is. It's an amazing thing because you get to see things from different points of view. But there's a part of me that wishes I had transitioned sooner, just because I
Mm,
feel like my transition would have gone more smoothly. So I would just say, but because I cared so much about like pleasing other people, like my mom, my family, not wanting to make them go um, through my transition, I would say just be a little more selfish. Not trying to please everybody, because at the end of the day, you can't please everybody. Nobody, like, it's just not never gonna happen. People, even if you think you're almost there. There's always gonna be like another person who's not gonna be happy. There's gonna be another one after that. There's gonna be, you'll never please everybody. So just do what feels right to you. If you know you're trans, and if you know you're different in any way, like, don't
mm,
be afraid of that. Embrace it and just like go for it. Like, find someone, a friend, uh, a family member who you can trust, and find a support system, because that's one of the things you do really need, a support system, especially during the early stages of your transition, and especially when you're coming out to everybody, because you don't know how people are going to react. I was very fortunate that my family was very accepting,
mm.
uh, and my friends as well, but like not everybody is in that position. So you gotta make sure you have a support system. You have someone that can help you out, that can take care of you, should the worst thing happen. But yeah, I would just say that, like, be a little more selfish, like, stop worrying about what everybody else wants and just worry about what you want, what you need.
Charlie, just again, I can't thank you enough. This has by far been one of the more emotional episodes I've done on here. It's so awesome to hear your dense and rich story, but more importantly, for those that are tuning in and listening to how Charlie's navigated through life, and even though it is not his responsibility to owe it to anyone, how still so sweet and understanding you are to people that maybe don't deserve it. And so
Yeah.
your story is amazing, but I think even you as a person is even more amazing. And I'm so glad that you gave us your time here today. Seriously, it means the world. And I hope for whoever's listening can take those words to heart, because Charlie is a shining example of that. He's walked that path and continues to be that example. So, Charlie, thank you much for
Mm-hmm.
coming on today. And hopefully we can run it back and check back in with you at some point down the line.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So again, you guys, hopefully you can take one, if not many things from Charlie's amazing narrative and seeing the light he has shed on this world. And just to continue following the Of Like Minds video podcast. And Charlie, we will talk to you and catch up with you later. All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
All right. Bye.